사극 드라마도 즐겨봤어요. 왕과 왕비가 살고 그리고 신하들이 그 회의를 하고 그리고 궁녀들이 일하는 그런 궁궐에 관심이 생겼어요. 제가 제일 좋아하는 궁은 경복궁입니다. 그런데 AI한테 경복궁 그림을 보여달라고 했더니 그 엉뚱한 그림을 보였다는 제보가 있었어요. 예를 들면 궁 앞에 강이 있고 나룻배가 있다든지 산 꼭대기에 있다든지 이런 오해들. 제가 직접 경복궁을 소개해 드릴게요. 같이 갈까요? 경복궁은 대한민국 역사와 문화의 중심지로 여겨져요. 조선시대 왕실의 그 위엄과 격식을 제대로 알 수 있는 곳이거든요. 또 경복궁은 외국인 관광객이 많이 방문하는 그 서울의 랜드마크 중 하나입니다. 제가 경복궁을 사랑하는 이유 이제 아시겠죠? 한국에 대한 잘못된 정보를 바로 찾는 일, 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로
나에게 에이펙은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour.
South Korea's key negotiators returned home following trade talks in Washington with their American counterparts. The presidential chief of policy said there was progress made on most key issues and expressed hope of reaching an agreement before the APEC leaders' meeting next week. An autopsy is said to be carried out in Cambodia today on the body of a South Korean college student killed in the country, as officials aim to determine whether there were signs of torture. Meanwhile, South Korean police have arrested a key suspect linked to the case, who allegedly lured the victim to Cambodia. Less than 10 days since Israel and Gaza agreed to a U.S. brokered ceasefire, Israel has launched airstrikes on Gaza. Hamas and Israel accused each other of violations, as medical sources in Gaza put the death toll there at a minimum of 44 people, while the Israeli military said 2 soldiers were killed.
With only 9 days left until U.S. President Donald Trump's reported visit to South Korea for APEC 2025 Korea, negotiations between the two countries have reportedly made progress. Now, this comes after South Korea's key negotiators returned from Washington following talks with their U.S. counterparts. Our An Sung-jin starts us off.
Negotiations between South Korea and the U.S. may have seen some progress following trade talks in Washington. Upon arrival back in Korea on Sunday, Presidential Chief of Policy Kim Yong-bum stated that some progress had been made on most key issues, though some still need coordination.
The possibility of reaching a final agreement before the APEC 2025 Korea has increased through the visit.
No specific details were provided on the breakdown of the $350 billion investment in the U.S., such as the payment method or a potential currency swap agreement. Kim did, however, note that the U.S. is fully aware of the impact that the investment would bring to Seoul's foreign exchange market. The U.S. had previously demanded a full upfront payment of the $350 billion investment, whereas Korea had proposed an extended investment period of around 10 years or an increase in loan payments instead. Neighboring Japan is to be investing funds per individual project rather than a lump sum upfront payment. Meanwhile, amid ongoing trade talks, South Korea's key business leaders, including Chairman of Samsung Electronics Ejae, Chairman of SK Group Chae Tae-won, and Chairman of Hyundai Motor Group Jung Hee-sun, gathered for a golf meeting with President Trump alongside business figures from Japan and Taiwan. Though details of the golf meeting haven't been specified, there's speculation on whether the leading figures from South Korea's chip, automobile, and battery discussed investments in the U.S. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, an autopsy is set to be conducted today in Cambodia on the body of a 22-year-old South Korean college student who was found dead in the country. Authorities say the procedure, which will involve 7 South Korean officials, aims to determine whether there were signs of torture before his death. Meanwhile, police have now arrested a key suspect linked to the case. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
An autopsy is being conducted by South Korean officials in Phnom Penh on Monday on the body of a 22-year-old South Korean university student identified only by surname Park, who was found dead in Cambodia. Authorities say the procedure aims to determine whether there were signs of torture before his death. The autopsy comes about 70 days after Park's body was found and will involve 7 Korean officials, including forensic doctors from the National Forensic Service. Officials say the examination is focusing on whether Park was tortured, mutilated, or drugged before his death. Once the autopsy is concluded, Korean authorities plan to cooperate with Cambodian officials to complete cremation procedures and repatriate the remains as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, back in South Korea, police have arrested a key suspect linked to the case. The suspect, a man in his 20s, is accused of being the main figure who lured Park into opening a bank account and later arranging his travel to Cambodia, where he was reportedly confined and killed by a voice-phishing crime ring. A pre-trial detention hearing was held at the Andong branch of Daegu District Court on Sunday, which approved the arrest warrant due to the suspect being deemed a flight risk. Authorities have been tracing the flow of money connected to Park's accounts and analyzing communications among those involved since the arrest of another broker in early September. Separately, 64 South Koreans detained in Cambodia on charges of related online scam operations returned home on a chartered flight early Saturday. According to police, most of them will face criminal investigations in South Korea as suspects in cyber fraud and illegal recruitment schemes. The ongoing autopsy, arrests, and repatriations highlight growing concerns over the escalating number of crimes targeting Koreans in Cambodia, prompting closer international cooperation between Seoul and Phnom Penh to combat online and job scam networks. Ejae, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, concerns are rising here in South Korea over escalating number of crimes targeting Koreans in Cambodia. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Lee Hyun, Dean and Professor of Law at Handong International Law School. Professor Lee, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So the 64 Koreans that were brought home from Cambodia now face investigations over alleged online scam operations, as most of them have been criminally charged, right? What kind of punishment could they face?
Right. So at this point, they've been arrested. So what that means is there will be an investigation at various police stations all over the country, depending on where these folks are resident in. And then at some point after the investigation is completed, then the prosecutors will get the case and then decide whether to actually charge them with crimes. And then the process will go forward, assuming that they are tried and charged. But as you mentioned, there are a number of different crimes that are potentially they could be prosecuted for. So, for instance, with respect to violations of the Communications Fraud Act, Electronic Financial Transactions Act, as well as related issues to human trafficking, as well as if anyone was directly involved in the torture of or confinement of Koreans abroad, those are also possible crimes where they could be charged. So here we're talking about a wide-ranging investigation, given the number of people involved, but I think we'll have to wait and see exactly what the prosecutors do with respect to what crimes they are charged with.
Right, like you just mentioned, this case is very complicated because being kidnapped and tortured in Cambodia is a separate issue from the alleged crimes like voice phishing or romance scams. So there has been long criticism that punishments for such offenses in South Korea have been too lenient. What's your take on this?
Yeah, in terms of the actual crimes as you sort of laid out here, they're overlapping issues, but naturally they're separate issues here. So the one area, as you referred to, was the voice phishing with respect to crime rings that are sort of engaged in committing fraud against Koreans here in South Korea. But with respect to the other aspect of which is the most serious aspect of the crimes, here is the human trafficking and again alleged torture that has occurred against Koreans abroad. And so with respect to those two crimes, while they're related to each other, they're going to be treated separately. But as you mentioned, the issue of financial crimes specifically, there has been criticism that's been laid out with respect to whether or not those crimes are treated too leniently in terms of jail time, as well as fines that are given to individuals who are accused and then prosecuted and then found guilty. So there is this sense, I think, among people who want to see stronger punishments given to people, especially stronger jail time, longer jail sentences, because of the nature of these crimes and how they've led to now these violent crimes being committed against Koreans. So I think there is something to be said about the leniency that's given. But, obviously, every crime is treated separately. Every individual is treated separately. So we'll have to see in terms of the individual cases, are there any facts that maybe warrant lessening the crimes here with respect to punishment? But in general, I think people are calling for stronger punishments to be laid out towards those individuals.
Right, and there are concerns that bringing back these Koreans does not necessarily mean the victims' financial losses will be recovered. Is there a way for South Korea to sort of legally cooperate with the Cambodian government to address this issue, such as freezing their assets?
Right. So there are cooperation measures, and particularly in terms of treaties that Korea and Cambodia have signed. So specifically, I'm thinking here of extradition treaties which allow for criminals to be who are prosecuted or charged with crimes to be sent to Korea to face prosecution. But there's also cooperation between police investigations. And so this requires, mutual cooperation agreements, as well as, Cambodian law itself provides for this kind of mutual cooperation with law enforcement officials abroad. And so there are a number of legal mechanisms that do exist for Korea and Cambodia to cooperate. And beyond that, because we're talking also about Chinese criminal syndicates as well, Chinese cooperation may be necessary because many of these organizations are based in China. And so this will require, if this is going to be sort of a more wide-ranging approach, to also include Chinese cooperation as well. And there are deals in place between Korea and China that potentially allow this to happen.
I see. And yet there are still young Koreans trying to still get to Cambodia. Are there any legal measures to fundamentally resolve this issue?
Well, on the Korean end of things, the Korean government can certainly put out travel advisories and travel bans. And that's, in fact, what the Korean government has done. They've put bans on certain areas in Cambodia, saying that you cannot travel, you should not travel to these areas because of the high risk that, the Koreans could be lured and also basically, captured by these criminal organizations. But, obviously, people generally have the freedom to travel, and people will continue to travel to Cambodia. So, probably the most important aspect of this is just education. People need to realize that if you do go to Cambodia, you're going to potentially face these issues, especially if you go to certain regions and are lured by these criminal organizations to get these kinds of high-paying jobs. So I think the way to address this for young Koreans is to educate them and to get the word out that you need to be very wary of getting these kinds of job opportunities abroad.
Right. Education is key to solving this problem, I guess. All right, Professor Lee, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
South Korea's per capita GDP is expected to fall 3 places on the list of countries this year, from 34th to 37th. According to the Bank of Korea on Monday, the IMF's World Economic Outlook released last week showed that South Korea's per capita GDP stood at $35,962 for this year, a 0.8% drop from last year. Taiwan is expected to climb from 38th to 35th place, overtaking South Korea for the first time in 22 years. Despite the short-term decline, the IMF expects South Korea to surpass the $40,000 mark in 2028, with an estimated per capita GDP of $40,802. On the cultural front, with growing interest in Korea and thanks to the success of Korean animation K-pop Demon Hunters, the number of visitors to Nat'l Museum of Korea this year surpassed 5 million for the first time in its 80-year history. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Annual visitors to the National Museum of Korea have surpassed 5 million for the first time. According to the museum on Friday, a total of 5,016,382 people visited from January 1st to October 15th this year. Among them, 4.83 million were South Koreans and 185,705 were foreign nationals. This is a 69.7% increase compared to the same period last year. This marks the first time since the museum opened in 1945 that its annual attendance exceeded 5 million in a single year. A growing surge in interest in Korea attributed to the global popularity of Korean culture, including the success of the Netflix's animated series K-pop Demon Hunters, seemingly led to the record. An annual visitor count of over 5 million places the museum in the top 5 globally. According to the art newspaper, the world's most visited museum in 2024, for example, was the Louvre in Paris with over 8.7 million visitors, followed by Vatican Museums, the British Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and Tate Modern. The National Museum of Korea has 13 affiliated national museums across the country. And with growing interest in Korea, the total number of visitors to all of these museums went over 11 million as well. Visitors to the affiliated national museums accounted for over 6.2 million, a roughly 10% increase compared to last year's. Eyes are now on whether the total visitors to the museum could approach 6 million by the end of the year. The director of the museum said it will aim to become a museum where culture can be enjoyed in everyday life with more exhibitions and improved viewing environment. 김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Ejae, the singer and co-writer of the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack song Golden, is here in South Korea, her country of birth. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo had a chance to sit down with her.
Up, 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 Ejae goes, breaking records by topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 8 straight weeks. When Golden first hit #1, she says there was one person she couldn't stop thinking about.
The first thing I thought of was 11, 12-year-old Ejae working her butt off in the studio at SM. And it felt, a little message to her if it reached, that you did so good.
For more than 2 decades, she's faced her share of hardships, especially during her 10-plus years as a K-pop trainee. Though she failed to debut as an idol back then, she says every moment happened for a reason.
I never, ever thought I'd be a songwriter in my life. That was never in my wish list. It just kind of organically happened when, after I came out of SM, I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
She spent long hours working alone, training herself to be better at songwriting. Then came the pandemic.
When that happened, we had to stay home. So it was hard, but it was honestly in a way amazing. It was a great experience because that's when I actually learned how to teach myself how to record. And a lot of songwriters don't really know how to record themselves or mix.
Through lessons learned from hard times, she joined the K-pop Demon Hunters team and helped spark a global phenomenon. As excitement builds for a possible sequel, Ejae told us about her creative ideas without hesitation.
트로트, literally. That would be amazing. So we'd love to explore the 판소리 아리랑 world.
And with the soundtrack's success, Golden was submitted in multiple categories for next year's Grammy Awards, boosting her chances for a win.
Winning a Grammy Award is just truly something I wish I saw a fellow Korean American woman, Asian American woman in the industry to win. It would open doors for so many people.
After all these achievements, she reflects on what her younger self might say to her today.
What do you think 11-year-old Ejae would tell you, seeing you now in one of your most golden moments of your life?
Oh my God, that's another emotional question. I think she'd just be thank you.
At the same time, she admits feeling pressure as expectations on her are so high.
Be like water. And I love that saying. That's kind of the concept of whatever comes your way, even if there's a lot of pressure, just do your best. do whatever you can and 최선을 다해.
She also offered a heartfelt message to anyone chasing their dreams.
If my story helps, please work hard, be resilient, be kind to yourself, and also be kind to others. Everyone needs a little bit of kindness.
With that mindset, Ejae says she's working on her next steps, getting better at songwriting and exploring who she is as an artist, poised to shine golden as she was born to be. 박건우, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Tensions in Gaza flared sharply on Sunday after Israeli airstrikes killed dozens of people just days into the fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire. The Israeli military says it acted after Hamas fighters fired weapons, including an anti-tank missile, and killed 2 Israeli soldiers in Rafah, calling it a blatant violation of the truce. Israel says its forces struck Hamas targets across Rafah, Khan Yunis, and Nusayrat, including 6 kilometers of underground tunnels. Hospital officials say 44 people were killed, including women and children. Among those killed was a senior Hamas commander. Hamas denies involvement in any clashes, saying it remains committed to the ceasefire, but warns new attacks could push the situation towards total collapse. Following the airstrikes, Israel says it has begun renewed enforcement of the ceasefire. Across the United States on Saturday, nearly 7 million people joined more than 2,700 No Kings protests, a massive show of resistance against what organizers call President Donald Trump's authoritarian overreach. Protesters chanted, "This is what democracy looks like," waving flags and yellow banners symbolizing unity. Organizers say the movement grew after mass immigration raids and the deployment of federal troops into Democratic-led cities. Speakers, including Senator Bernie Sanders, accused Trump of undermining democratic institutions, while demonstrators warned the freedom of speech and public services are at risk amid the ongoing government shutdown. In Paris on Sunday, a team of thieves pulled off a 4-minute heist at the Louvre Museum, escaping with 8 pieces of jewelry described as priceless from the Apollo Gallery before fleeing on motorbikes. Officials say the robbers entered through a window shortly after the museum opened. They cut through glass with power tools and grabbed jewelry dating back to the French monarchy and Napoleonic era jewelry, including tiaras, necklaces, and brooches before speeding off. French President Emmanuel Macron condemned the robbery as an attack on national heritage and viewed those responsible would be brought to justice. Authorities say the theft was likely carried out by professional criminals targeting valuable art. The bassist and founding member of Limp Bizkit, Sam Rivers, has died at the age of 48. The band announced his death in a social media post on Sunday, but did not disclose the circumstances of how he died. Limp Bizkit called Rivers the group's heartbeat, saying his talent was effortless and his presence unforgettable. Frontman Fred Durst said he has shed gallons of tears and praised Rivers' ability to pull beautiful sadness out of the bass. Rivers previously battled liver disease and underwent a transplant before rejoining the band in 2018. Limp Bizkit rose to fame in the late 1990s with albums like Significant Other, Chocolate Starfish, and the Hot Dog Flavored Water. The band said, "Rest easy, brother, your music never ends."
Many regions had the coldest morning of the entire autumn season so far. Arctic air has streamed in from the north, causing temperatures to plunge overnight nationwide. And because of the strong winds and the sudden drop, it feels like temperatures will be quite severe all day, so make sure to bundle up. The skies over the central regions and Gyeongsang-Pukto province will gradually cloud over. Rain is expected along the east coast with 5 to 40 millimeters in the forecast, and where the temperatures are the lowest in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province, that rain could turn into snow, bringing the season's first snowfall of around 1 centimeter. And frost is also expected in inland areas. And this afternoon, most parts will see temperatures going down 3 to 5 degrees lower than norms, topping out at 15 degrees Celsius here in the capital, Daegu, Gyeongju, at 17 degrees. Early winter mornings will last until Wednesday. Please take good care of your health with this sharp temperature change.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences, like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using its locally developed Yuri rocket.
아리랑 제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NLCS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다. NLCS 제주가 명문대 진학의 길을 열어갑니다.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, October 20th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, and also Cheska's with us.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. Both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday and we're kicking off another work week. So can you believe it's already late October? So it's not an exaggeration to say that the year's almost over. Time really does fly, and honestly and unfortunately that also means we're getting a little older. So today we're talking about that feeling, the little anxiety that comes with getting older. So do you ever feel a bit anxious about that, about aging or time passing too fast, Kyun?
A little, of course. Yes, of course I do. And even though we say age is just a number, I think it can sometimes feel a bit more than just a number, especially here in Korea. So I did feel anxious and fear of aging in my 20s because I think I wanted to be forever young. Only because in Korea, age is considered to be a little sensitive in general. And as the Korean language uses honorifics, as soon as you find out how old each other are, you have to immediately use 존댓말, honorifics to the person older than you. So I had to be really careful with the word choices because most people that I met or hung around with were much older than me. So at first it was kind of difficult using the right kind of word, but then in contrast, in Korea, if you're the maknae, the youngest member of anywhere you go in a group, they treat you with extra care. You don't have to pay much.
Yes, you're the cute one in the group.
Exactly.
Whatever you do, forgiven.
Whatever you do, you get the benefit of the doubt. So maybe I think that's why in my 20s I wanted to stay as a maknae forever. But then hitting my 30s, I feel, it is what it is. You have to accept getting older and having like younger hube, like people younger than you who look up to you. So you become more responsible with age, and you're forced to become more mature. So
are you becoming more responsible?
Can you tell? Like, I look pretty responsible, don't I? No. But I think I don't have any anxiety of actually getting older now that I've hit my 30s, so it's quite interesting.
But I feel like that crossover happened so soon because I remember it was just like, I feel like it feels just yesterday that I was like the youngest person in the office, and now like just last week we've got new hires and they're all so young. They're in well into the 2000s.
You're still young.
Thank you for saying that.
Does that make you feel like older?
It does, and I feel like I can't mess up anymore, and I feel like that's the hard part. So I totally get that. In my early 20s especially, I didn't really think much about getting older. It felt so far away, but now more and more the thought of not wanting to age has started to kind of creep in a bit. But then again, as time goes on, you kind of realize you can't control it and you just have to learn to go with the flow. So how about you, Cheska? Do you feel that kind of anxiety about aging?
So I love to say the older you get, the wiser you become. But I do feel that I'm completely going the opposite, and sometimes I want to be more immature, like making fun of you from time to time. But I also don't really get much anxiety from the actual aging part.
Oh, it's really healthy.
Yeah, I think the only
fear that I would have, if I would call it a fear, is my physical body wearing out because I wouldn't be able to enjoy it much. But having said that, when I'm with a lot of my Korean girlfriends, there's a topic that always comes up, and it is aging. So we would joke, but also very sincerely talk about putting in silver care funds so that now we can, maybe buy a community house together. And there are a lot of Korean girls who are thinking of not getting married or having a child. So I think this is a topic that comes up quite often. And also, I know a lot of young people are really into running, exercising to keep their body healthy. But I think it goes more than just the aesthetics. People are really trying to take care and prepare for actually getting old.
That's a really good point. So even if you personally don't feel it that much, you can definitely sense the social pressure around you. This fear of getting older has many layers to it. It's not just about how you look, but also about stability, career, and even how society values youth. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more.
When we think about the fear of getting older, we usually imagine people in their 40s or 50s. But these days, even people in their 20s and 30s say they're scared of aging, and that anxiety is also strong right here in Korea. It's not just about getting wrinkles or losing youth. It's tied to bigger concerns, things like financial stability, job security, and preparing for life after retirement. So on News Generation today, we're going to delve into why millennials and Gen Zs are so anxious about aging and what can be done to help them feel more at ease about the future.
As you just saw in the video, even young people are starting to feel anxious about aging. It's not just about appearance or getting wrinkles. It's about much deeper concerns such as financial stability, job security, and whether they'll be able to live comfortably in the future. And that anxiety is happening against the backdrop of a major societal shift. Korea has now officially become what's called a super age society. So aging isn't just an individual concern anymore. It's becoming a shared societal issue that affects how we think about work, family, and even our own sense of time. So what does this data actually tell us? How fast is Korea aging, Kyun?
Very fast, super fast actually.
Super fast. Actually super fast.
Super fast, yeah. So according to a survey released by Statistics Korea last month, the number of elderly people aged 65 and over in South Korea surpassed 10 million for the first time in history. As a result, the proportion of the elderly population reached 20.3% of the total, exceeding 20% for the first time again, and marking the country's entry into a super age society as defined by the United Nations. So if this trend continues, and by the end of year 2072, 47.7%, so almost half of all South Koreans will be in the age bracket of 65 and over. And now I personally see more elderly people around me everywhere I go, not just in Seoul, but like outside Seoul as well. But when I first came to Korea, which was like in 2010, it was very common to see just a lot of children, many students as well, just anywhere you go at any time. But nowadays, especially here in Seoul and where I live, you can only see children and students at a certain area or like a specific set time. So it's very different to what I saw 15 years ago. And many schools in rural areas are closing down due to the declining birth rates, meaning less students, and the population is very centralized in the greater Seoul area. So I think even in Seoul, we do have obviously a lot of children population, but you only see them in specific areas where they're like different, like new 신도시, we call it, like new towns, new areas
where the young couples
live because of the infrastructure that surrounds them. So especially where I live, I don't see many kids running around in playgrounds. Playgrounds are pretty much empty, and you see more like older people, I guess, just meeting their friends in those areas. So it is quite concerning, and it's become the truth, the reality here in Korea.
It is, and I think the numbers that you point out also show that, because over 10 million people aged 65 and older is crazy, and it really shows just how quickly Korea's population structure is changing. To think 1 in 5 Koreans is now considered basically a senior citizen. That's not just statistic. It's a complete social shift that affects everything from from the economy to everyday life. So Cheska, when did Korea first become an aging society, and how quickly did it move into this super age stage?
So we kind of entered into the age society in 2017, so that's about 8 years ago. And then as Kyun mentioned, we have moved already into a quote super age society. And just to reiterate the facts really quickly, in less than 20 years, more than half of the population, or almost half of the population, will be over the age of 65. And I think the most significant part is we're not just talking about age brackets, about which age group has more population or less. As you mentioned, Sujin, I think it affects everything from the workforce to the healthcare to what kind of jobs we will be actually able to have in the future. And I also know that the silver care industry, for this particular reason, is quite on the rise. There are a lot of exhibitions that are happening, and there's a lot of investment also going into this particular private industry. And also in one way, I do believe that because the age demographic is now going to shift dramatically, we really have to think about what are we going to do with that population? Maybe create a new work opportunities, because there will be so many who will be out of jobs, normal jobs. So I think that's an opportunity for new work industry as well. Yeah.
Right. I feel like you said before, like with the silver care industry, there used to be kind of like stigma around it, but there's so many luxury, those centers around.
Right, absolutely. And just to give a quick example, my grandmother, after my grandfather passed away, also entered into a silver care system. But I visited, and everybody sort of formed this kind of community. And their welfare and the benefit was so much more than just living alone. So I think the stigma also is going to wear off from time to time.
Right, so that's incredible to move from an aging to also, like you mentioned, a super age society in just 8 years. That sounds like one of the fastest transitions in the world, and that trend continues with half the population being senior citizens by 2072. It's no wonder people are starting to feel uneasy about what the future will look like. So how is this rapid aging affecting younger generations emotionally? Are millennials and Gen Zs really feeling more anxious about getting older, Kyun?
So first, let's take a look at the screen for more details. According to a recent survey by Hanyang University Institute for Aging Society, Koreans show a relatively high level of anxiety about aging, with the MZ generation exhibiting the highest level. So on a scale of 5, people in their 20s and 30s scored the highest, saying they feel anxious about getting older. And the main factors contributing to this anxiety include deteriorating health, financial burden, social isolation, and negative stigma of the elderly. It is quite ironic, as the MZ generation have more years to live than they actually have lived so far. But due to the aging population here in Korea and the kind of bleak projections of the future the country is actually heading towards, and what we see on the media as well, it does make sense to have a sense of unease about what is ahead of them. And this obviously includes us as well.
Right, exactly.
Since we're representing people in their 20s and 30s. But I do have a different, I guess, view of getting older. Like, I don't fear it as much. I just accept it and try to cherish every moment I have, because seeing my parents and my grandparents age, it is quite sad to see them getting all wrinkly. But then with age comes a lot of wisdom and experience, which is something you cannot substitute for age, and of course money. So I have a brighter future. I have a brighter, I guess, attitude towards getting older. So, I mean, guys, look, there are 2 sides to every page, so look on the bright side. Let's try.
Well, I think that's a really good point. Do you actually feel like you've been getting wiser as you've gotten older?
As you can see, can you tell?
I mean, it's very hard to tell.
I think it really comes down to what kind of experience you have in life. Because at a young age, you don't have much experience. You just have a lot of energy, vitality, which is great. That's what young people should have. But as you age, you lose that energy, and you feel it with your body, especially like on a personal level. But then with the age and the deteriorating health, you get wisdom and the experience, and because of that, it helps you make better decisions and choose the right path and know what exactly makes you happy. So I think everything balances out in the end.
I guess that's also why it's important to try a lot of stuff when you're younger as well. So you'd think also, like, older people, as we said, would be more anxious by aging, but it's not actually the younger people who feel it the most. It really shows how deeply this issue has reached across all age groups. So even as people in their 20s and 30s are feeling the weight of aging. And when we talk about aging anxiety, what exactly are young people most afraid of, Cheska?
I think it can be 2 big factors. The first, I think, is the more physical aspect. So I'm not just talking about the body, but also the financial. essential. Just to elaborate a little bit on what Ki-hoon mentioned, because the economy is downwards and your financial stability is unsure, that puts a lot of anxiety and pressure on the young people to pose questions like, will I actually be able to have enough savings or financial security to support myself when I physically can't move and go out to make money? I think that is a big concern, because once your health, as Q mentioned, deteriorates, you do need finances to support yourself. But the second one, which I think is a lot larger and a more cultural thing, is the stigma around getting old, which was also mentioned in the statistics. I think people fear being isolated and fear being alone and also having to retire early. So that kind of ties into the job security as well. And there was a study that was done that showed the difference in marital status and gender, and women actually exhibited slightly higher anxiety level than men. And people who were single also felt a little bit more anxious than who were married. And I think the reasons didn't go deeper, but I think some of the reasons that we discuss here do provide some explanations why some groups might be more affected to aging anxiety than the other.
I think all the points you made are really telling. It's not just about looking older, it's about feeling left out or disconnected as you age. And if you think about it, the anxiety about aging might come from seeing how tough things already are for some of the older people in Korea. And that social isolation that a lot of older people feel might also be linked to, as you mentioned, economic realities, like how people struggle to stay financially stable as they get older. And speaking of that, so what's the situation like for older people in Korea right now, especially in terms of finances, Kyun?
So South Korea's elderly poverty rate is close to 40%, the highest among OECD countries. In fact, 4 out of 10 elderly people are still working to make ends meet. And according to one survey, 74% of office workers said they are not adequately preparing for retirement, mainly due to low current income and heavy expenses such as children's education and home loan payments, highlighting the high cost of living and education here in Korea. And lastly, for pensions, 9 out of 10 members of the MZ generation are anxious about the possible depletion of the National Pension Fund.
It's a long list of things that young people are kind of stressed about these days. And that's also why it's easy to see why young people are so anxious. Seeing older adults struggle financially makes the future feel uncertain and scary. And when you add concerns like low income, debt, and worries about the pension system, you can see why preparing for old age feels so overwhelming for young people today. This isn't just abstract numbers anymore. These stats directly impact how younger generations view their own aging and life plans. But beyond the numbers, how much does society's attitude toward aging influence this anxiety, Jessica?
I think a lot. And as we mentioned before, I think this is why it's so important to not only cultivate, but actually curate the social perception in our society. Because when there is a social stigma about aging, then it puts a lot of pressure. It's not just even recommendation. It's more like a recommended expectation that at a certain age, you must get a job, you must get married, and you must have a house. That actually puts more anxiety on people getting, people aging rather than just the physical body deteriorating. And as we mentioned before, financial security is also a very important factor when it comes to aging. But knowing that or feeling like you have to retire at a certain age or you'll be forced out of the workplace at a certain age, I think places a lot of anxiety on people too. And I know, and this is quite unfortunate, that a lot of my friends who are still in their 20s and 30s who have an office job would talk about their office job as a side affair because they need more financial security from other hustles and other jobs, basically. And this is why for young people, I think it would be so much more encouraging and motivating to see people who are over the age of 50, who still work, who are still loving their job. And that's actually very invigorating and exciting for people like us too.
It gives a lot of hope too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So far, we found that aging anxiety is affecting even younger Koreans, the millennials and Gen Zs more than ever. So this isn't just about looks or health, but also includes financial stability, societal pressure, and the rapid pace of Korea's aging population, all contributing to the stress and uncertainty they feel about the future. So to get a broader perspective on this, we turned to the Arirang News YouTube channel and asked viewers, why do you fear aging? So let's see what they had to say on this. So according to the results, the biggest source of anxiety about aging came from declining health and changes in appearance, accounting for about 70%. Financial insecurity followed at 18%, while social isolation made up 7%. The remaining 5% cited other reasons, including uncertainty about the future and emotional stress related to aging. So it's interesting to see that the vast majority of anxiety comes from physical changes and health issues rather than money or societal or social isolation. But it also kind of makes sense if we think about it. No matter how much we prepare financially, it's hard to not feel uneasy about the changes we can't control, which is things like health or appearance. And now to get a global perspective on this, we're going to speak to a young person from a country known for having one of the oldest populations in the world, where aging has long been a major societal issue and shaping the way younger generations think about their future. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us is Alyssa, Gen Z from Germany, a country that has decades of experience dealing with an aging population through policies on pensions, healthcare, and elder care. So hi, Alyssa. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So how is Germany's population aging? What measures or policies is your country putting in place to respond to this trend?
So as you already said, Germany is very similar to Korea in a lot of sense. So we also have a very low birth rate and long life expectancy. So the proportion of elderly people is steadily increasing while the working age population is shrinking. So right now we have our percentage in people over 65 is higher than Korea. And I actually checked it right before because I got unsure. So, of course, this puts a lot of pressure on the pension system, our healthcare, the labor market, all of which are not stable at the moment. So to respond, the German government has introduced several measures. These include, for example, raising the retirement age over to 67. Right now, and encouraging more women and older people to participate in the workforce if they haven't before, and also promoting immigration to fill a labor shortage. In general, the German government at the moment is highly discussed and controversial and working to destabilize the social system that is currently in place. So some of the measures are controversial, as the government is, and the pension system is just not feasible anymore. So we would need like a whole new system, but that's very hard to just build. So that will still take a few years. On the positive side, Germany also invests a lot in family support policies, such as parental leave and childcare subsidies. So we have child benefits. So if you have a child, you get the child benefit by the government until they're 25. And there's also new parent benefit every time you have a baby to take care of it. As part of the parental leave, you get also money from the state. So they try to make it easier for people to have children.
Thanks for sharing that. How do you think young people in Germany feel about getting older? Do they also experience anxiety about aging like many Koreans do?
Generally, I feel like aging is seen more as a natural part of life and more accepted among the general population, at least when it comes to looks compared to Korea. As for the aging population issue, I'd say there are different reactions. So some people aren't as anxious as young people in other countries, but there are also people that are researching how to build a private safety net from a very young age. So I've seen people from like 12, 14 starting to research that. And I'd say in general, I met more people that don't believe in retiring anymore and having anxiety about financial security and housing is a very big topic in Germany. But instead of living in that anxious state, they decide to focus on more positive things they can influence and control, like their work-life balance, healthy lifestyles, or learning, like lifelong learning, studying at university.
All right, we're gonna let you go a bit early because of time constraints, but I think what you pointed out made us all realize that like we might be different countries, but there's still a lot to learn from. Like Korea's also talking about like raising the retirement age and also the importance of work-life balance. So thank you so much for sharing all of this insight with us today.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
So aging anxiety may feel daunting, especially for young people facing economic pressures and societal expectations. But today we've seen that there are ways to face it head on. From personal planning to learning from strong social support systems, there are steps everyone can take to feel more prepared and confident about the future. So while getting older is inevitable, how we approach it with planning, perspective, and a bit of curiosity can make all the difference. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Kyun.
Let's all have a young week.
Oh, I love that.
And also Cheska.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
갈까요?
갈까요?
갈까요? 갈까요?
어디 가요?
한글 만나러! Welcome to APEC.
여기 202호 차 좀 빼주세요. 202호.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts, or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Kalbijjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait, did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.